Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the grand stage and our brief fireside discussion with Babs Ogundeyi, CEO and co-founder of Kuda Bank, who has been in the news a little bit this week for all the right reasons, and I'm very keen to talk about him. My name's Stephen Mooney. I'm one of the members of the UK government's Department for International Trade's Global Entrepreneur Program, which was a program set up to help aspiring entrepreneurs and founders use the UK to springboard into other locations. And since for the past 10 years or so, we've helped over 600 companies do that, usually tech-based companies that are really IP-rich businesses looking at making the UK their base to raise capital and hire talent and go global. And Babs is an excellent example of that. So as an alumni, I really want to spend the next 25 minutes or so talking less about the UK government and more about Babs and his journey as a founder from Africa through the Global Entrepreneur Program. So with that, I want to turn it over to you, Babs, to introduce yourself and Kuda Bank. I think looking back, you and I probably met, it's almost three and a half years ago at Startup Bootcamp in Cape Town, and it's been quite a meteoric rise since then. So if you could tell the listeners a bit about that journey and particularly a little bit of time on what's happened in the past week and a half.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Hi, everybody. So yeah, my name is Babs Ogundeyi, co-founder and CEO of Cuda. We're a full-service digital-only bank, and with a mission to make banking more affordable, more accessible, and quite frankly, just more rewarding, more fun. There's been, I live in Nigeria. I'm Nigerian, even though I was born and grew up in England, but my passion is in Nigeria, in Africa. And for a lot of us here, financial services has been, it's been torture, if I'm going to be blunt. It's expensive. We don't really get access to all available financial service products like credit and whatnot. And this is kind of what really led me to start thinking about, how can we do something better that is, that can serve more people rather than, a preservative of a niche audience, the niche being sort of HNIs, government and big corporations. So that's what Cuda is really about, bringing financial services to, basically to the palms of absolutely everybody that needs to have it. As Stephen mentioned, we met it's actually in 2018 we met. So we were part of an accelerator program in Cape Town by Startup Bootcamp. We're one of the top 10 technology businesses that were Africa focused. And that was it was an amazing experience. And from there, we've kind of gone on to sort of get a banking license in Nigeria and basically build a bank from scratch in the way that we see how a bank should be. So today, our customers are able to open accounts sort of literally within a couple of minutes from wherever they are at that given time. They're connected to the switch. They can transfer money to and fro any bank, all for free. And they also have access to credit, like instant credit. And that journey has had like a lot of people that have been involved in it. Of course, right now we just announced our seed round, which, I seem to be getting a lot of credit for, but, the honest truth is, it's a journey that has many, many players. I mean, Stephen is one of them. The GEP is one of them. So, essentially we're a UK company headquartered in the United Kingdom, and Nigeria is our first subsidiary. So what that means is all our investors actually invested in the company, in the parent company in the UK, and 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 that kind of just really makes it a lot easier for for raising capital. Also in terms of talent as well, talent acquisition. You need people to that understand businesses such as ours to really help with building that business. So being in the United Kingdom, that's kind of been tested and tried and tested, has a lot of trust from in the investing community, made it a lot easier for us. It's still very difficult, obviously, to get funding, but it did reduce the friction with regards to getting funding. And the result of that is what has been announced recently, with the seed round, and which is actually, I think it's been described as the largest seed round coming out of Africa, and is seen as being quite historic. But yeah, it's been a long journey, but it's been an exciting one, and we're really sort of just excited to keep driving the mission forward.
Yeah, absolutely, Bab. And as you say, you get all the credit when you're flying high, and then it dumps on you when whenever things are low.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the nature of the CEO. But I think you probably undersell yourself a bit, right? I mean, I read the TechCrunch article, and I think this is, as a seed round, I know that you focus on B2C, but it's an impressive number, and it's not your first raise as well. Obviously through the accelerator initially, and then the pre-seed round. Can you talk a little bit about the funding experience and your access to capital? And also, it's an interesting story, and I think it's worth telling, and a really good lesson for founders. Kind of what happened at the start of this year when the global financial markets went into a calamitous position through COVID, and how things changed for you, and the resilience that you showed. So could you talk a little bit about both the access to capital in the early stages and the raising of this particular round?
Yeah. So obviously, unfortunately, an idea is not enough to build a business. You always need capital. So for us, it was just the way we kind of went about it is, at the initial stage, was to just reach out within a closed network. So we had sort of just built relationships with, over the years, friends, family, who we still had to convince and get them to have conviction in the idea, in us as founders, and also in the market, that there is a big enough market for them to invest in. And it's kind of the same even with when you get to the stage of getting money from institutional investors. So what we did was, from the initial money we raised, which wasn't a lot in terms of if you're trying to build a bank, and I say this often, and this is a testament to sort of a lot of the team at Cuda. We literally built a bank from scratch with just over $1.5 million. And that included, having a banking license. That has never been done anywhere else in the world. But, because of the sheer scale of what is involved, the technology that you have to build, the regulatory requirements that you have to have in place. So we basically did that, and it's just, we're just very resilient. We're very bootstrapped, and we built the technology in-house by ourselves, which reduced the cost a lot, but required us to pretty much work around the clock. But hey, that's the nature of sort of startups, and that's the nature of sort of giving value. So you know, the pre-seed, after the pre-seed, we felt we were ready for an institutional investor. And we really had to prepare ourselves for that. We had to really understand, you know, what a venture capital investor wants, what they're looking for. So we needed to understand that. We needed to understand the types of investors that were out there. We had learned a lot throughout sort of the year that we'd been building Cuda. So we were fortunate to meet the guys that did invest. They understood sort of the digital banking space. They had invested in other digital banks, you know, the likes of Revolut, Monzo, Chime in America, Nubank in Brazil. So in terms of the concept of digital banking, they really understood it. And that's part of the reason why we really went to speak to them. You know, we didn't really have to sell the concepts to them. It was a lot easier, you know, to sell what we were doing. What we had to do was to convince them that we were the right people to be able to pull this off in probably the biggest market in Africa. And Africa is pretty untapped with regards to sort of digital banking. So, you know, it was a long, hard road, but, you know, even the process of raising money was very difficult. And one of the interesting things that happened was we had tried to raise money at the beginning of the year. You know, we started the year really well. In January, we're part of the AIS, which is the big sort of summit between Africa and the United Kingdom. You know, we met lots of important people. I got to meet, you know, the future king of England, Prince William, at Buckingham Palace, you know, so we were like on a high. And we had a lot of investors flooding in, a lot of interest. And we had a term sheet, you know, from semi-institutions. So there were angels that came together that formed a fund, and they were ready. They were going to invest $2 million. And then the pandemic, the lockdown, the crisis, and everybody pulled out. And that was like one of the scariest moments for us because, you know, we had, you know, and it's a lesson as well. We had started spending money like we had raised the money. So we'd gotten a bigger office, you know, contracts had gone out for jobs for people to join us. We had done like a salary increase company wide, just to motivate people, to get people excited. And that was really scary. And we went through a lot of, you know, we spoke to existing investors. We spoke to sort of more friends and family. We tried to reorganize our revenue potentials. You know, what can we do to actually just start generating revenue now, or enough revenue to be able to fund the business without having to raise money. So we went through a lot of sort of, you know, mental trauma, as well as, you know, just the whole, you know, being on lockdowns, not really having the opportunity to go out there to mingle with investors. So it was a difficult period. However, it turned out to actually really help us because, you know, the fact that there was a lockdown, access to brick and mortar financial services was a pain. People didn't want to do it. It was a health risk. And we really took advantage of that. You know, we gained more customers in the month of April than we did in 3 months, you know, in the first 3 months of the year. And that just hasn't stopped. And it's just been growing ever since then. And it turns out that, you know, investors were actually now starting to come to us because, you know, COVID had accelerated digital transformation. And as Africa is still untapped, you know, we had a lot of interest, you know, from different investors, and we ended up getting a really good, sort of a much better offer than, you know, we had sort of anticipated at the beginning of COVID. and it's just gone from strength to strength ever since, in terms of just the interest and whatnot. We wanted to raise, so we'd pulled out, we're trying to raise 2 million, and then we increased it to 5 million, but we ended up raising 10 million just because of the interest. And that just really gives us a good foundation to kind of just, be more aggressive and really push hard and execute and get, as much of the market as we can.
Yeah, that's a great story. Thanks for that, Babs. There's some questions in the chat box, and I'm trying to frame my questions around them because I'm mindful of time. Sorry, you froze for a second, Babs. Can you still hear me all right?
I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, cool. So one of the things that's fascinated me, and as you know, I spend a lot of time working in Africa through the Global Entrepreneur Program, but is the rise of technology and the overall ecosystem of entrepreneurship within Africa, right? It seems to be maturing, in parallel with a global understanding of digital banking solutions, as you said, with the rise of Monzo and others. In parallel to what was going on with COVID, there was obviously, in the States, fundamental shifts with Black Lives Matters and the perception of Africa as well. And I wanted to ask, as you went through this journey, were there any changing perceptions or stigmas as you tried to raise within the UK, or any challenges that you faced on that front? Just the overall perception, of African business. I feel like it's changing, but I really want your perspective and also in the limited time, some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that you've faced over the past 2 years on this journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely there is a perception, and I think there is a perception of risk when it comes to Africa. There's a perception of not enough knowledge from founders, and there's just a perception that founders that are of sort of a European background or American background are just better at building big businesses, because investors don't want to invest in a nice business or a good business. They want to invest in a big business. They want to invest in the next Apple, the next Google, the next Facebook, and so it's not completely without justification, just because we haven't had a Facebook out of Africa or a Google out of Africa yet. On the flip side, we haven't had the opportunities that a Mark Zuckerberg had when he was building Facebook. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg thing. But for us, what we are seeing is there's more and more confidence in Africa. I think it's a process. So, what I think helped our case was the fact that, I had a very sort of British background, and I was able to bridge that sort of perception of lack of knowledge, even though I was in Nigeria. So I was pretty much able to educate the right investors about the real realities of Nigeria. You'll be amazed to actually know that a lot of investors don't really have that innate understanding of what is happening on the ground. Their understanding is based on sort of a lot of secondhand or third-hand information sometimes. So you can't really blame the investors. And a lot of them, because they view Africa as pretty risky, not a lot of investors actually come into sort of, in Nigeria or Kenya or wherever to see for themselves, to feel it, to feel the energy, to see what is happening. So I think in our case, I was able to kind of to do that. And I was able to do that because of sort of, we had, some of the angel investors that we had believed strongly in us as founders. They really had ultimate faith, and they were able to speak, with complete assurance to the investors. and which kind of gave a lot of comfort, because remember, this deal was done over Zoom. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah. Not even the face to face. And
yeah,
yeah.
we never met. You know, I met the investors that invested for the very first time when I sort of when we closed the deal and banked some of the money. So that was like really amazing. But it goes to show that, you know, if we're able to somehow just get the right information to the financiers, then we have a much better chance of raising sort of the required capital to build sort of, you know, a business of our dreams, so to speak. So yeah, that's a big sort of learning point for me.
Yeah, yeah, and it's, you know, as you said, about presenting the opportunity and the realities of it, right? And when you look at the market size opportunity of Africa as well as the diaspora, you're talking, you know, dollars and cents that make sense for the investors,
Yeah.
and it's just about trying to understand that. I'm mindful of time. There were a few questions around kind of your takeaways and your lessons to other African founders. Maybe if you could spend a couple of minutes just talking about some of the key lessons you've learned over the past 2 years, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about what's next. We joked that as soon as you close the seed, it's time for the A round, and fundraising is the key. But if you could spend a little bit of time on that before they cut us down, I'd love to hear that from you.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, the journey is, you know, there are many lessons from investing, from the business, from dealing with regulators, from what customers want. I think one thing I will say is, you know, in terms of, you know, investing, you know, a lot of, you know, even though we really want the capital, the way investors carry out due diligence on sort of on your business and on you, I think you really owe it to yourself as well as a founder to do the same to investors, because the reality is you need to understand and appreciate that you are, you know, it's also a favor to the investors, because if you end up building a good business, you're creating value, you're creating wealth. So you have to have that conviction in yourself, because what tends to happen is, especially within Africa and sort of what I've noticed with some, you know, African investors, is founders are almost made to feel like it's a favor for you to get investment. You know, your business is an asset class, you know, you're creating wealth, you know, so, and if you do that, you can, I mean, potentially make people very wealthy or
Yeah,
wealthier than
it's an
they are.
exchange of
You
wealth,
know,
isn't
it's
it?
an
Yeah.
exchange. Yeah. So, you know, you have to appreciate that, and be confident about it, you know, and I think it really helps you when you also sort of talk to investors and they see this, and this is what real investors want to see. This is what they want to hear, you know, so, and then in terms of sort of just generally, I think just being open with your story and just understanding, having that innate understanding of your story and of your vision of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to build. The more and more you say it and believe it, you know, it becomes natural for you to speak about it and to live it. When I started, I used to have to write notes, you know, whenever I wanted to talk about Cuda or whatever. But now it's, you know, it's in my sleep. It's so when you do talk about it, you're so confident that, you know, no one's really asking you for numbers anymore. They're just like, wow, okay, yeah, I believe in this. I buy into this. I connect with this, you know, and it makes the process a lot easier. In terms of what's next, I mean, yeah, you know, look, we just closed a round, you know, we're not necessarily thinking of, you know, yeah, raising money again right now.
Quite yet.
We're going to have to at some point in the future, obviously. But yeah, definitely not yet. But but you know, we need to just really prove and deploy the capital that we have raised and show that, you know, we can spend money and we can deploy money adequately.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much next steps.
prove it out and then move on to the next round. I see we've had people drop because we're on time, but
Okay.
I wanted to spend this last couple of minutes just thanking you for the time. And Babs, I know you're quite humble, but I think you're an inspiration to Nigerian and African founders. And as I said, I appreciate the time now, but wish you all the best and look forward to continuing to watch and help in any way that I can along the journey. So we'll catch up soon when you're back in London, and good luck down there.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you. All right.
Good to see you, Babs. Cheers.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.